Okay, it seems it's working. Great. So let's start. So yeah, today I'm going to present you how we can increase the onboarding towards Ethereum and how we can actually get towards the adoption that everyone hopefully wants to get to with Ethereum. So yeah, let's get into it. So of course, onboarding starts with trust, right? I mean, everything begins with trust. Without trust, people aren't feeling engaged to use anything. They are not going to participate or feel excited about using something. It's the same with people, with organizations, enterprises, or institutions. They all need to feel trust, otherwise they are not going to use anything. So the question is, how do we make it trusted for everything? So before I'm getting into how we can do that on the hand of the framework, I'm going to go back to the internet, which I think is a perfect analogy that we can compare with Ethereum as a public good, right? So when we get to look back at how the internet began, right? In the 80s and 90s, the internet was difficult and complex to use for people. It was basically something people tried to play a little bit with. You know, mass media was saying this was not something that is going to be sustainable. People aren't going to use this at home. It's going to be, you know, something that is not going to get adopted at all. So what happened is the internet evolved, and over the past years, in the evolution of the internet, it got well adopted. Why? Because they simplified things. And how did they simplify things? Well, you can just look at the internet stack, right? Where you see how they evolved towards consumer applications, which is the top stack of the internet, right? Where it's also the place where the most value is captured. And I think this is something that's wrong with how we look to Ethereum, right? People are comparing Ethereum with other blockchains, and they are like comparing them on the wrong type of values, right? I mean, like for example, people try to value Ethereum based on the packet, on the fees, on how fast Ethereum is, and I know those are measurements, but actually how we should value it is just as we value the internet, right? Nobody values the internet based on package fees. Everyone values the internet based on the usage and the value it can capture to consumer applications. So this is a stage where we should get to with Ethereum as well, where we can use all these different applications, super simplified, available, accessible for everyone. But what we do differently with Ethereum is, of course, we use what we are building on the base layer, which is decentralization, privacy, security, self-custody, you know, the things that matter. This is what people should learn about Ethereum. These are the core values and the core ethos that Ethereum, where Ethereum all started about, right? When we look back at the thoughts that Vitalik had when he was writing the Ethereum white paper, right? He wanted to build this global secure network that has all these core fundamentals. And on top of that, you know, we can really integrate the internet analogy with it, because when we use the internet analogy, we can actually also create the frontier for Ethereum, which I would call the latest layer, which I would call the top layer on Ethereum, which would be also for consumer applications, right? Where it's actually getting usable for everyone. It could get adopted by everyone and easy usable by everyone. So we don't have this trouble of people not knowing how to use things, not knowing how to you know, get into Ethereum, use all these different applications, because now it's a little bit chaotic, and that's also the way it started, right? We started with the right vision, the right ethos, but we didn't really get yet to the part how we can, you know, make it as adopted as the internet was. So I think the internet analogy is an amazing comparison with how we should, you know, use Ethereum as a public good. So between Ethereum and the internet, we still have this bridge, I would call, which is the bridge that, you know, consumers, institutions, non-profit organizations, whatever you want to say as users, they have to walk this imaginary bridge to get into Ethereum, right? To go from the internet web 2 to Ethereum as to use it. And the problem is that Ethereum, especially now with the AI and agent area, it's so evolving super, super fast, and people cannot follow that. I mean, we all know the majority of people, they have no idea what's happening, how fast this is all developing, and that's also mostly the reason why they maybe use it like crypto for the wrong reasons, or why they have a wrong perspective on what crypto is, what blockchain is, what Ethereum is. And so that bridge is something that we definitely have to build, and it has to be a strong and stable one, so we can actually get to the point of the adoption. So the trust stack is a good base to use as all the different things that you need to include, right? You have technical trust, UX trust, risk trust. There are multiple versions of trust that you have to include, right? And this comes from every sector, right? This is something you have to think about from the developer sector, from the absolute base layer, to get to that consumer application stack, which I mentioned previously. And Ethereum also needs translation. The jargon that Ethereum is using is too difficult for people to understand. Self-custody, open access, programmable money, people don't understand these terms. It's too difficult for them. So we have to, help to translate it to a more understandable and engaging way. I think that's how we can also give more meaning to Ethereum, because now people don't really understand it. So this is a visualization of, it's a simple visualization of how we could get from the base layer towards what I call the consumer application stack, right? And there is a lot that's going on between those two, and a lot of things that we're still trying to figure out, right? In which we're, at the base layer, we're keeping to scale security, privacy, decentralization, and that's amazing. But in between, like the workflows, the funnels, the DAO, the governance that we're doing, the data and the structure, we're not really like optimizing the usage of all these things, right? And we're still trying to figure out how that we can optimize it so that we can actually reach the point of the third stack and make that well adopted. So I think what we need to focus on more is how we can, let protocols meaningful interact with each other and work better together. And actually, when you have some type of protocols that give advice, some type of protocols that are building new things. And I think if we can, through, for example, better on-chain governance, let them interact better and have better communication in between, we could move faster and better, and immediately could get to the level of which it becomes all useful, and we are actually building real use cases that we can bring to the frontier. So why now? Well, it's a good question because, I think we're getting to a point where in the world people are starting to recognize blockchain as, this is the new thing that we maybe are going to use in the future, right? And it's not something that's super niche anymore. As you see, like, for example, institutional adoption is a great thing that's like happening more and more now and on a faster level, which, the institutions are basically laying the highways for the future consumer adoption. And, also with the mass adoption towards stable coins and these RWAs that are really forming. I think it's something that's really, really interesting, all that's happening now. So I think that's why it's a good moment to think more about, all these things. So again, like, trust is the bottleneck, which I'm going to now. And we really have to work towards that. Otherwise, we're not going to get the people with us. We're not going to get the masses with us with all what we're doing. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. So this is one of the models that I would be using, which is called the Trust Bridge model. As a lot of great Ethereum researchers have been working on what they call trust shift, right? Which is basically the shift from centralization towards decentralization, where people are now used to trust the centralized institutions, the centralized authorities, and we actually want to give Ethereum as a meaning that it's the trust shift towards a better future for our society. And I think that Trust Bridge model can really help in that, because what we're going to do is basically, like I said, translate everything that people don't understand, give meaning to that, and that can mean a lot of different things, which I will also come to in a second. And because of the translation, people are going to feel more confident about what they want to do on Ethereum, what they want to use. And then when they feel more confident, they can open themselves for these different cultures that are on Ethereum, right? You have a lot of them, and actually start engaging with them. And that's where you get to the participation level, where people are actually going to participate in the ecosystem, which is, of course, our end goal that we want to achieve. Doesn't matter which protocol they use, it is participation that we want to get towards. So, and I believe that communities are a big factor in helping to build the bridge. They're, what gives real meaning towards Ethereum, what can help people understand what Ethereum is. They're also one of the early ones that, when Ethereum began, when the whole blockchain technology began, you had, for example, the cyberpunk community that was really from the beginning there, which always was accessible for people, where people could engage with. There was no excluding at all. Everyone could feel included. And I feel like, communities is something that's really undervalued and underrated, especially amongst a lot of the developers, protocols, and amongst the institutions that are, working on Ethereum or thinking about using Ethereum. And I think communities can be an amazing way to help engaging and building that bridge. So we as Book of Ethereum, we are a community on Ethereum, and we try to build cultural infrastructure that helps to translate, all the difficult, complex things of Ethereum into social media that everyone can engage with, understand. We want to make people excited about Ethereum, about the future of Ethereum. We want to give them something to hand on, and I think our community is a great environment to be in. There are also other communities, and that's what I mean. We really have to form this, as it's also a super strong movement. Communities can have a great power in a good way, right? It's not one person that is in control. It's actually the definition of what we could do with decentralization, right? Where we give the power in communities and let them decide and let them, help others. And I think that's an amazing way to do it, right? For example, we do it through our memes, which are accessible to everyone. Everyone can understand them. Through our stories, our education that is on each level, so everyone can start. It's not that you need some specific skills or you need to be a developer, otherwise you can participate. It's super accessible towards anyone. And to keep people engaged, to keep them participating, we also work with rewards, right? And a lot of protocols work with rewards, which I think is an amazing way to do it. And in that way, we will get more future users. And people are going to actually understand what it is. They're going to be excited and they're going to participate. So some of the examples that we support, and that I would call, projects that are already reaching that third stack of consumer application oriented, is, for example, Filverse, which is an amazing decentralized project that is, really Ethereum aligned with the ethos, right? They're decentralized, they respect privacy, they have self-custody. But from a user, for example, we introduced it in our community as well to use, and for people using it that are completely new to all of this, it feels like they're using Google Docs, for example, and they don't even have to worry about how this all works, and it's super easy UX that they integrated, which is, again, that's why I show it as an example of how great it is. Then another example that we work with is Strado, which is this hard/DeFi company that is helping people that have gold or silver to tokenize it and make their assets productive, which is another great function that Ethereum can have, right? And it's securing their assets, it's storing them, and it helps them make their assets more productive, as I said. You can do a lot of different things on Strado. It's all super secure. It's Ethereum aligned. They also have self-custody, privacy, respect, and everything else included. So this is another great example of what an application on this third stack can look like. And I think that a lot of developers are trying to reach this, but that they have to really think about how to get there and not necessarily just focus on building the product or or just focusing on working on it in their own language, in their own niche. And I think we have to get out of that kind of mindset and be more open towards a different translation of that. So what I want to end with is that I think trust is that bridge that we have to form. And culture can be a great language to do that, which can be understood by everyone, that is meaningful for everyone. And of course, UX is the path towards that. But it's not everything, but it is, of course, the path that people walk. And Ethereum is the destination. So I think that the future of adoption is belonging to those who can turn infrastructure into understanding and understanding into participation. Thank you all for listening.
Do we have any questions? We have time for one question, maybe? OK. Thank you very much to Colin, and we'll be moving on to